Chapter 2. The differences that makes the difference. He was traveling along the highway at 65 miles an hour when suddenly it happened. Something along the side of the road catch his eyes, and when he looked back in the direction in which he was traveling, he had only a second to respond. It was almost too late. The Mack truck in front of him had suddenly come to an unexpected stop. Instantly, in an effort to save his life, he laid his motorcycle down into a sickening skid that seems to last forever. In agonizing slow motion and slid beneath the truck, the gas cap popped off his motorcycle and the worst occurred. Fuel split out and ignited. His next moment of consciousness is the experience of waking up in the hospital bed in searching pain, unable to move, fearing to breathe. 3/4 of his body is covered by terrible third-degree burns. Still, he refused to give up. He's struggling back to life and resumes a business career only to suffer another staggering blow. Airplane crash that leaves is paralyzed from the waist down for life. In every man and woman life, there is come a time of ultimate challenge, a time when every resource we have is tested, a time when life seems unfair, a time when our faith, our value, our passion, our compassion, our ability to persist are all pushed to our limit and beyond. Some people use such tests as opportunity to become better people. Others allow this experience of life to destroy them. Have you ever wondered what creates the difference in the way human being responds to life challenge? I certainly have. For most of my life, I have been fascinated by what triggers human beings to believe the way they do. For as long as I can remember, I have been obsessed with discovering what sets certain men and women apart from their peer, what creates a leader, an achiever. How is it that there are so many people in this world who live such joyous lives in spite of almost everything adversity, while others who would seems to have it all lives despair, anger, and depression? Let me share another man's story with you, and let's note the difference between the two men. This man's life seems much brighter. He's fabulous, wealthy, enormous talent, entertainer with a huge following. At 22, he was the youngest member of Chicago famed second school comedy troupe. Almost immediately he became the show acknowledged star. Soon there is a major theater hit in New York. He became one of the great television success of the 70s. Then he became one of the nation's hottest film stars. He branches into music and enjoys the same intellectual success there. He has dozens of admiring friends, good marriages, wonderful home in New York City and Martha. He seems to have everything a person could possibly ask for. What of these two people would you rather be? It's hard to imagine anyone choosing the first life over the second. But let me tell you more about the two people. The first one, the most vital, strong, successful people I know. His name is W. Michel, and he alive and well and living in Colorado. Since his terrible motorcycle accident, he is knowing more successful and joy than most people know in lifetime. He's developed phenomenal personal relationship with some of the most influential people in America. He's become a millionaire in business. He even ran for Congress, despite the fact that his face was grotesquely marked. His campaign slogan, "Send me to Congress, and I won't be just another pretty face." Today he has a fabulous relationship with a very special woman and his happy companion for Lieutenant Governor of Colorado in 1986. The second person is someone you knew well, someone who probably brought you a great deal of pleasure and joy. His name was Johann Belshul. He was one of the most celebrated comedians of our time and one of the great entertainment success story of 70s. Belushi was able to enrich countless lives, but not his own. When he died at the age of 33 of what the coroner ruled acute toxicity from cocaine and heroin. Few who knew his were surprised. The man who had everything had become a bloated, out of control drug abuser all beyond his years. Externally, he had everything. Internally, he had been running at empty for years. We see similar examples all the time. Ever heard of Pete Strubwick, born with no hand, no feet? He has gone on to become a marathon runner who has already run 25,000 miles. Think of Helen Keller, astonishing story. Think of Candy Lighter, the founder of Mother Again Drunk Driving. She took a terrible tragedy, the death of daughter who was run over by a drunk driver, and she found an organization that has probably saved hundreds, maybe thousands of lives. At the other extreme, think of people like Marilyn Monroe, Ernest Hemingway, people who had fabulous success and ended up destroying themselves. So, I ask you, what's the difference between the have and have not? What's the difference between the can and cannot? What's the difference between does and don't? Why don't some people overcome horrible, unimaginable adversity and make their lives a triumph, while others, in spite of every advantage, turn their lives into a disaster? Why do some people take an experience and make it work for them, while others take an experience and make it work against them? What's the difference between W. Michelle, John Balshin? What's the difference between them makes the difference in quality of life? I, I have been obsessed by that question for my entire life. As I grew up, I saw people who had a great riches of all time and great job, wonderful relationship, and well developed physique. I have to know what's caused their lives to be so different from mine and that of my friends. The difference all come down to the way in which we communicate with ourselves and the action we take. What do we do when we try everything we can and things still turn out wrong? People who succeed do not have fewer problems than people who fail. The only people without problem are those in symmetries. It is not what happened to us that separate failure from success. It is how we perceive it and what we do about what happened that makes the difference. When W. Michel received the information from his body that 3/4 of it was covered with third-degree burn, he had a choice in how to interpret that information. The meaning of this ever could have been a reason to die, to grieve, or anything else he wanted to communicate. He chose to consistently communicate to himself that this experience had occurred for a purpose, and that this would someday provide him with ever greatest advantage in his goal to make a difference in the world. As a result of this communication with himself, he formed a set of beliefs and values that continued to direct his life from a sense of advantage rather than tragedy. Even after he became paralyzed, how was Peter struck weak, able to successfully pick the most difficult marathon in the world, even though he has no hands and no feet? Simply, he mastered his communicate with himself. When his body sense sent him a signal that in the past he had interpreted as pain, as limiting and exhaustion, he simply rebelled their meaning and continued to communicate to nervous system in a way that kept him running.